Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. Today is Monday, May 13th, 2013. I'm Darko. My website's ggnonline.com. If you'd like to donate through PayPal, I'd appreciate it. Also on YouTube, my channels are ddarko2012 and ddarko2013. The links will be posted in YouTube's video description, and I'm ready to go. This is part 4 for today. Should be the final part. 9/11 conspiracy theorist removed from UN panel after a B'nai B'rith request. A former MI5 intelligence officer who has said that the September 11th terrorist attacks were orchestrated by the U.S. government as a pretext for war and to erode our freedom has been removed from a June 6th UN panel discussion in New York. He's crazy because he could have just said that it was actually orchestrated by Israel. But it says here, B'nai B'rith International, a Jewish humanitarian human rights and advocacy group, had written to the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, says here, to request that the 9/11 conspiracy theorist Annie Machen be removed from the panel. In addition to her views on 9/11, she's known for claiming that Israeli Mossad was behind the 94 bombing of Israel's embassy in Lebanon. Says her outrageous and offensive views do not deserve a prominent platform, let alone in the city's most scarred by the horrific events of 9/11. So B'nai B'rith said in a statement after the announcement of her removal from the program. Next up, says Gulf Navy drill not directed at Iran, says the United States. The Vice Admiral John Miller said that on Sunday that a massive naval minesweeping exercise involving 41 countries was not directed at Iran. It was purely defensive. U.S. moves military forces closer to Libya, says Pentagon spokesman. So Washington's dispatched more troops closer to Libya in the wake of the attack on a U.S. consulate in North Africa country. So we are prepared to respond if necessary, if conditions deteriorate, or if we are called upon, says Pentagon spokesman. Obviously, we have moved assets and personnel without providing any more details. But it says here, Libya plays down U.S. military intervention. Libyans have played down reports of possible foreign intervention after news reports on Friday said that the U.S. has alerted special marine units to be ready to respond to developments in the security situation in Libya. Western corporations hold Africa to ransom. So this George Shire, a political analyst, says, I'm not underplaying the rise of a new transnational, trans-ethnic oligarchy that is emerging. That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that the larger is a larger geopolitical framework which holds Africa to ransom, for ransom. And a good point to be made is when you see all this stuff about clashes and stuff like that, and a lot of the stuff that's going on in Africa, a lot of it is it's actually being caused by international corporations going in there and bypassing the people. And of course, as a result of that, these people are not stupid, they're not dumb. They realize that these international corporations, a lot of times they have puppet governments, and they're there to basically separate the people from their resources. It's what's so messed up is that they keep them in a state like that until they eventually get controlled opposition or a group or a government that is going to be able to basically send 90% of the profits made from those resources out of the country instead of in the country. And if they do remain in the country, they'll be put to, quote, education, i.e. brainwashing, re-education, rewritten history, healthcare, i.e. abortions, contraceptives, vaccines, telecommunications, again, more propaganda through media and stuff. U.S. Special Forces commit crimes against Afghan civilians, says a report. The new evidence shows American forces have committed torture and multiple murders in a key province of the war-ravaged Afghanistan. They say here that they have proof that American Special Forces have been involved in kidnapping, torturing, and killing of Afghan civilians. American accused of torturing, disappearing Afghan civilians. I'm not sure if this is a similar story because it's the same Wardak province. It goes on here and it says that the documents are linking U.S. citizen to killings 2 months after the initial Afghan government demands for U.S. to withdraw from its forces from Wardak province. The troops are still there and the government is still unhappy about it, but new details may mean an additional push after the first effort failed to convince the U.S. to go. It says Afghan officials now say that they have a specific suspect, Afghan-born American named Kandahari. They have implicated in at least 15 different killings or disappearances and who they have on video torturing a detainee. He was affiliated with the Special Forces in Nurk district. It says here where they source a lot of complaints. Special Forces team and Kandahari were said to have move in and out of the base with impunity, and Afghan officials said the group regularly wore U.S. military uniforms with long beards and rode around on motorized motorcycles looking for insurgents. They regularly detained people, accusing them of working with either the Taliban or Hezbollah Islami. Shackles, mask, and nasal tubes. Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay revises force-feeding techniques. So they're being force-fed in Guantanamo Bay. They must wear masks over their mouths while being shackled to a restraint chair for up to 2 hours. Authorities have revised the way they feed the strikers, comparing their techniques to battlefield tactics. Jammed up, said here they've got these nasal tubes jammed up the prisoners' noses until a liquid supplement reaches their stomachs. Said the tubes are 61 centimeters in length or even longer. Says they stay in the prisoner's nostrils until a chest x-ray or a test dose of water is shown that nutritional supplements have reached the prisoner's stomach. Says here it doesn't stop there. They're sent to a dry cell with no running water while they undergo supervision to make sure that they don't vomit. If they regurgitate their supplement, they're sent right back to the restraint chair. Another pressure cooker scare. Says man was making rice. FBI surrounds home of Saudi student spotted with pressure cooker. Not every guy carrying a pressure cooker is doing something suspicious. Armed FBI agents surrounded the home of a Saudi student living in Michigan last week after neighbors spotted him carrying the kitchen appliance outside. The reason? He had made a traditional Saudi Arabian rice dish and was taking it to his friend's house. An FBI agent told him he needed to be more careful. TSA bomb-sniffing dog bites women at this airport, so still recovering. So it happened on May 2nd. It says she was standing in the baggage claim area and noticed a canine officer handler standing beside her. She said that she was barely paying them any attention when the dog suddenly lunged and bit her in the lower stomach. So she was basically EMS responded. The skin was broken. There was no bleeding, and it just looked like a scratch, they said. So, but she says that the injuries were more serious. She said that the bite left 3 cuts, bleeding, and a bruise as big as her hand. Oh, wow. So she sent pictures of her injury to 11 Alive. I don't remember feeling the cut. I didn't really realize that they had pierced the skin. No, I'm not promoting anti-gun legislation here, but I am just covering this because I've seen other articles on it too. 3 shootings by young kids in Texas in 1 week. So a 2-year-old, 5-year-old, and 7-year-old. Said it's been a bad week for kids in Texas with 3 shootings involving children under 10 years old, one of them fatal. So on Wednesday, 5-year-old shot a 7-year-old brother with an old rifle, while the 2 played unsupervised. Thursday, 2-year-old fatally shot himself in the head with his dad's handgun, while the father was busy elsewhere in the room. And it says yesterday, an 8-year-old shot his 5-year-old friend in the head with a rifle as the 2 played alone in a bedroom. I think it just goes along the narrative of what I've talked about before, which is, I almost wonder, because Obama is kind of the president, he'll go down in history as one of the most gun-friendly presidents in history, because he's just, for the weapons manufacturers, he just made up a lot of money. So never mind what some of these conspiracy sites and right-wing sites are saying, they're the best friends. He's their best friends. So, but I think they're going to they're flooding the market as well with a lot of weapons. I'm not sure about ammunition. There's different stories about scarcity in that department, but as far as flooding the country and society with weapons, I do believe that could be happening just so that they can have incidences where people are like, enough is enough, so they can get people that are pro Second Amendment and that to be able to say, well, enough is enough. They did this after Sandy Hook. I noticed people in the articles and that were doing that. They were supposedly pro-gun, and they were saying, enough is enough. I'm a gun owner, and I'm not going to do this. Or I'm a veteran. I say we need to do something. So this is what they do. So it's tragic. Brother's arrest stuns California town and girl's death. It says people in this quiet Northern California community expressed relief that there had been an arrest in the stabbing death of an 8-year-old girl, but they were stunned that the suspect, her 12-year-old brother. They said it was shocking. They don't know what else to say. So they actually had an intense manhunt on, and they announced that the boy had been arrested and faced homicide charges. Sandy Hook Task Force recommends demolition and rebuilding. I was just discussing this about how these PSYOPs, psychological operations, and blood sacrifices take place, and they always have to have a hero, right? Because for everybody, when they see this, it's this is the new thing. It's kind of like the Running Man or Logan's Run or something where where they, the Dorner case, where they shoot it out live on television, and people actually, they really get like adrenaline pumping, and they actually kind of get like what do you call it, withdrawal symptoms after the whole Zarne of Boston bombing suspects were caught. I mean, I could tell, I saw other people, the way they were reacting and stuff like that. That's how they're turning it into. But they always have to have heroes, and then they have to fucking sacrifice somebody as well. Whether it's the Navy SEAL team after that, whether it was the house burning down from the victims of Sandy Hook, the hero of Hurricane Sandy, he got bit and killed by a shark in a surfing accident. All kinds of different stories. Even the Boston bomber hero, I think there was issues with him about he's not actually what he's made out to be. But either destroying evidence or just completing the sacrifice or the psychological operation says to erase some of the emotional trauma. See, trauma-based mind control, right? Emotional scars left behind from the December shooting massacre at the Sandy Hook school. And advisory board wants the building torn down and replaced. Then I saw this article from May 8th. Term limits encourage legislative myopia and jeopardize fiscal health, says study. Conservatives have pushed for term limits to rein in government, large essay, whatever, and a majority of Americans support the idea, but the cure would be worse than the disease. A researcher, a political science professor at California State University, found that term limits for legislators promoted government overspending rather than restraining. A study was published in May. It says term limits could lead to poorer fiscal health. It says term limits could also promote budget problems. It says that they push out those lawmakers with experience and policy expertise that would normally be so instrumental in working out compromise and sound policy. And you guys have probably seen this article back in January. Could Obama be the first three-term president since FDR? Well, I don't know about all that, but it's worth noting U.S. Congressman has introduced a bill that would repeal the 22nd Amendment, which currently limits the president to serving only 2 terms as commander-in-chief. Should the bill become law, it would allow President Obama to run for re-election yet again in 2016. So I saw this article, most popular baby names for 2012. Kind of interesting. Isabella, Olivia, Sophia. And you've probably seen other people with these names as well. But it says here that some of the fast rising baby names for 2012, weird, Irea, Perla, I mean, not the traditional American names, but fast rising names for boys, Major, so it's very militaristic, Messiah, King. So it's like one person said, are these people trying to, are they used to living under authoritative rule or something, or do they want their kids, are they trying to live through them vicariously? Because they're peasants or slaves and they want their children to be kings and messiahs? I don't know. Well, I'm going to finish up here. This is pretty much all I have for you today. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you. Take care.